do instead is they pick on their body or what they look like. But that's a defense mechanism. It's because they can't face themselves. There are people that don't like to be alone because they don't like their own company. There are people that have never spent the time to get to know who they are. And if they don't really like who they are, they haven't taken the time to change that.
Yeah.
So,
that's
really
important.
I remember listening to a friend of mine, Michael Colley, and he wrote the book Code of the Third Millennium Warrior. And I went to a conference listening to him talk, and I don't remember anything he said but one statement that changed me forever. He said, am I a good person? Am I a good man? Absolutely. Why? Because I work at it every single day. And I remember thinking in my head, I would love to be able to say that about myself. Because at the time, I don't think I could have. And it took years, but I started really cleaning house. I started writing letters to people that I owed apologies to years ago. I did what I call a karma cleanse. I gave letters of thanks and praise and of apologies. I faced up to everything that you push back in the back of your mind and wish you had the guts to deal with, but you don't even want to bother somebody else because it's been so long. I brought it all up. I cleaned it all out. And then I started looking at myself and thinking about, who do I want to be?
Right.
Who
now,
would make me?
The thing you're mentioning, Emily, about this karma cleanse or making, another way, could you call it making peace with your past?
Absolutely.
Can you give some hints? Because I know there's a part of 12-step programs where a person does what they can to make amends for
I
the
did the 12 steps for my anxiety. Yeah. In my From Fear to Faith book, I did the 12-step program for the anxiety. When I say I tried everything, I really tried everything.
Yeah.
That book is going to be published this year, actually, From Fear to Faith, but it's got the 12-step program in it, and that I tried to apply to anxiety because I've always heard that you can use the 12-step for anything.
Yeah.
So I went through the whole 12 steps to try to rid my fear, and that was part of it, was, making amends and making peace with your past. You can't, so many of us take the burdens on of other people just because we almost don't know what it's like not to, and we're conditioned to do that. But at some point, you give your apologies, you do the best you can, and then you step away. Step out of it. You do the best you can. You've done what you can do. Now you detach. That's the hard part. Living a life without a lot of attachments is much more peaceful. Because you're taking on other people's stuff.
Sure. Well, boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, there's been more than a few times in interacting that I think myself, my listeners, all the people out there can relate to having had an interaction with someone, completed that interaction, they went away, but felt worse from it. What the heck happened? And it's like carrying away some of their stuff.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or even in relationships when you stay way past the expiration date. They don't have to be instant relationships. That's what I call it. You stay past the expiration date, and you gnaw on the bone. My friend used to say that all the time. My beautiful friend Ashley would always say, she goes, I keep staying and gnawing on the bone. That person's gone, but I'm still here, chewing on the bones. I can't, it's like we just can't let go because it didn't go the way we wanted it to.
Yeah.
So they left, and we're still sitting going, no, I'm not done. I'm going to replay this in my head another million bazillion times until I feel like I have just exhausted myself and then finally have no choice but to move on because they've left a long time. Those people don't think about it the way we do. They're not still thinking about us.
Yeah. Well
we are.
You made mention, and I think this is where some people can turn to you. I don't know if it's shared in your books, and there's 4 books that you've done?
5.
Awaken, 5 books. Stretch Therapy, Stretch Therapy 2. Come into Being
Anxiety
with the guided meditation. And,
and then my last book, my most recent, is Thank You, Mr. Wrong. And I wrote it with my best friend who's an improv comedian. And then I had 8 other women write offerings. And one of the things I talk about in my chapter is, did you stay way past the expiration date of your relationship? And that book is a hilarious book, but it's also, what it is that the only constant in any relationship is you. So as much as we don't love our past or things that we've been through, the only thing you can change is you. And that goes in the world. That's not just lovers and partners. It's the only constant is you. You cannot force or even ask anybody to change. You can inspire change, but you can't impose your will on anybody else.
Mm.
You know.
Okay.
So that's not just in relationships, but it's true. You know, we fall in love with the potential. We're not in love with the reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
well,
that's just life.
Well, one of the things to me that I think is interesting, and this is kind of a tangential thing, but maybe has some validity when you talk about imposing your will. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like Dr. Marshall Rosenberg talks about communication skills in his nonviolent communication studies, and one of the things that he makes mention of is that communication patterns in his studies have been implemented on the planet for thousands of years to make people subservient to authority. And so, in essence, when we have authority figures that do basically inflict or implement their will upon us, it would be understandable why people would then think, okay, well, someone has basically had their way with me. They've implemented their will. They're telling me what to do. It would make perfect sense then for them to think, okay, well, now I'm in a relationship. Maybe it's my turn to assert my will and have someone else dance to my tune for a while.
Or the opposite. You look for a person that fills that same space that still talks to you like that.
Yeah, or or someone else.
Parents. Yeah,
tell me.
You know, your parent may tell you things when you're growing up, and they condition you. And then when they leave, you keep up that voice in your head. And then sometimes you look for a partner that does the same junk. You still want to be if you haven't done the cleansing and changing.
Wow.
Then that's exactly. You know, I remember, my college boyfriend, our big argument was I used to say to him, I am not going to be your mother. Stop trying to make me be your mother. I don't want to tell you what to do. I don't want to do this. You know, it was like such an argument, and by the end of the 4 years we dated, that's exactly what I became. Was a motherly figure, you know, where it was like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to date somebody where I'm telling you where to go and what to do. You know,
so
originally it was clear.
Oh,
he won.
That's so funny. So even
he totally won him.
Telling you, even when you were telling him you don't want to be his mother, you were then telling him what to do.
You are still being the mother. And it's also funny because, you know, I think a lot of people don't catch on, myself included. If I would have just shown by actions and never spoken, I don't want to be your mother, and just instead stepped aside and let him figure it out and let me figure it out, it would have been a much better combination instead of me turning into some crazy motherly woman who, you know, got really excited with all that power. You know, power is it's a funny thing, you know. You don't want it, and then when you have it, you're like, oh, I forgot. I actually really enjoy this. I like being in charge. I told you to call me. Where were you?
I want my way, and I want it now.
And you know what? I'm very good at that. Well, and people with anxiety, they don't ever want to look like they're out of control. That's their big thing, it's control. So you do want your way. You want it exactly like you want it to be. You want to appear to others exactly like you want to appear. And if any of that gets off course, you are just cruising for a bruising. You're down for the count. God forbid you look human in front of anybody.
Okay.
You know, I still have a little bit of an issue with that where I don't. One of my friends said, he goes, I know you don't mean to be, but you're a master manipulator. I cannot read you. And I said, I don't mean to be. And he said, I know, but you don't tell anybody when you're under distress until you've already dealt with it. And then you come back and you say, I was really anxious and I had such a hard time. And he said, why don't you ever say that at the beginning of it? You know, but I'm so used to handling it on my own because it is such an isolated experience that I still have that conditioning in me. I still don't like to look silly. Like, I don't mind being crazy and funny, but I don't like looking out of control, and I don't like looking, I don't like looking vulnerable. Yeah. Even though it's like the most endearing thing in the world. And I'll take clients and do emotional release and hear their worst, most guarded secrets that they've never told anybody in the world, and I look at them with the most loving eyes. But God forbid I turn around and do that.
Now I'm hearing you mentioned some techniques when we spoke before the show about doing some powerful emotional release work for clients, and I didn't know, is that only done in your office, or can you help people calling you from all over the country or the world?
I could certainly help people while talking, but it's a lot easier if I have my hands on them for sure, because Spirit tends to really speak. I get into a totally different space when my hands are touching somebody. I'm a completely different person. I'm very